very warm welcome to this fireside chat titled Reimagining IT Infrastructure in This New Normal. Pursue the New. I hope you are keeping well and staying safe. Just to give you a little bit about the context of this conversation before we dive into this fireside chat. Now, more than a year after the lockdowns and social distancing changed the face of India's business landscape, the most resilient MSMEs forged ahead by undergoing a digital transformation. Reimagining IT infrastructure is an essential component of this transformation as it boosts business operations as well as enhances productivity, particularly among MSMEs. Now, to discuss the role of digital transformation in enabling MSMEs to gain a competitive edge in this post-pandemic world, its opportunities, and the way forward to a digital transformation, it is my pleasure to introduce Shailendra Katyal, who is the Managing Director at Lenovo India, who will be interviewed by Shradha Sharma, the founder and CEO at YourStory. So to tell you a little bit about Shailendra, he is an alumnus of IIM Calcutta with about 20 years of experience in revenue as well as cost management, mergers and acquisitions, as well as marketing. He has helped build businesses scale in both traditional as well as digital routes to market. And prior to Lenovo, he has had stints with Marico as well as Wipro in key leadership roles. Over to you, Shradha.
Shailendra, around the same time last year, MSMEs had, it has been tough, but last year it was very tough. And they had to think about access to capital, cost optimization, facilitating remote work. How have you seen MSMEs evolved in this time frame?
Thanks, Shraddha. It's a great question. And first of all, we have to acknowledge that MSMEs are one of the most important backbones of our economy, if not the most important. And we don't say it lightly. 30 to 40% of the GDP contribution does come from the MSME sector.
Yeah.
So as a workforce, they're the second largest employer, right, after agriculture. And to the point that you said, has it been easy for them last year? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And they're called MSMEs for a reason, right? They've not reached the scale of a large company. And for any small company to absorb the shock and the kind of shock that the entire economy went through, it's not easy. They don't have the surplus capital, or the balance sheet just can't absorb either a revenue shock or a cost shock, which the economy went through last year. And has it become easier now? No, absolutely not. Because as things were kind of looking up around Jan, Feb, March timeline, we went into the second wave. So it is a problem twice over for them. That just when they thought that things will open up, they'll recover.
Yeah.
They've had another revenue shock. Larger companies still are able to digest that kind of shock because you have a larger appetite, you have access to better capital, your P&Ls are larger. But for a MSME, just to miss one revenue cycle means that their working capital goes for a toss, their accounts receivables go for a toss. And in parallel, we are also seeing that the economy is going through a fair bit of inflation on the commodity side, etc. So there is cost of pressure, and on the other side, you're not able to sell as much as you could because the economy is under lockdown for a fairly longish period. So it has been troublesome for them, is the only thing I would say. But at the same time, we know the Indian entrepreneur, right? They're very, very innovative. They are very resilient. So people have found their workarounds, either in terms of better cost management or trying to find innovative ways of getting to the market. If offline is shut, then how do you use digital channels to sell, etc. They have been innovative. We've seen a lot of pivots also happening in this space. People who were doing one thing have started doing another thing just to ensure that their ship is afloat. So they've been smart, and I'm fairly confident. I've always had a high regard for the Indian entrepreneur, and I'm sure that this will also open up areas for them to become more efficient, because a shock always forces you to look at the basics and relook at your whole business strategy and plan. So yeah, times have been tough, but pretty hopeful of the future for the Indian.
Shailendra, from your vantage point, you are today engaging with so many MSMEs. What are some of the innovative ways you've seen then tackling this whole digitization which has happened?
Yeah, so great question again, Shraddha. And like I said earlier, I have great pride in the entrepreneurship of Indian small businesses. And people have innovated. We see it all around us, right? If restaurants are shut, people have gone into cloud kitchens, finding a way of delivering. If you were producing a certain kind of consumer good and that demand has gone down, people have pivoted to making new kind of goods. Like if the demand for sanitizers went up, suddenly the same capacity which was making one kind of product, which was maybe a deodorant, has been used to make sanitizers because that is where the need was. So people have utilized their capacity with more innovative ways. And like I said, if offline distribution is shut, people have opened up on digital channels of selling. People who were doing, say, offline coaching have pivoted very successfully to online coaching. And suddenly they've realized it's a better model because instead of teaching one person at a time, you're able to teach 10 people at one time.
Yeah.
Fitness coaches have gone through that. So the examples are all around us. And I think people have been very smart about it. India has always also adopted technology quite well. I would say that internet penetration has gone up in the last 4 5 years. Everyone is comfortable with at least a smartphone, if not a computer. And we've seen that usage all around us in this period.
It sounds rhetoric, but the business agility and efficiency are more very, very important now in this digitized world. And here I want to understand from you, why should MSMEs care care a lot to equip themselves with the latest hardware? Because we're just talking about softwares, and then challenge from you, we want to hear, why should they equip themselves with the latest in hardware?
Yeah, first of all, I want to correct the perception that we can talk only about hardware because that is one of the big transformations we are going through as a company. And you said the right thing, right? And maybe this has been building up over time. COVID has only accelerated the
Yeah.
phenomena. But if all our lifestyles are becoming far more digital, businesses had to keep pace sooner or later.
Yeah.
And the businesses which were not keeping pace, the traditional kind of companies were getting disrupted as we speak, right? Whether it is fintech, whether it's agri-tech, whether we take even direct-to-consumer kind of brands coming through. Basically, everything can go digital today at a level. And maybe it's just come in as a maybe a bigger escalation point that during COVID, everything physical was kind of shut down and people were kind of look at a digital model. But my sense is it had to happen sooner than later, irrespective of COVID or no COVID, because digital transformation or the fact that your business has to have a digital footprint.
Yeah.
It's not a new story. It's been maybe a decade old kind of story. Now, to your question on why new hardware, right? Now, look at the capacity that you need today, even to do this kind of a virtual call, right? Can you still do it on a very slow machine? Can you do it on the earlier bandwidth that you used to have on your Wi-Fi? Absolutely not. When you have to be truly productive today, the sheer demand on the hardware is very, very high.
Yeah.
In fact, earlier maybe a 2 GB RAM used to be okay for running most processes. Now even 16 GB seems to be lesser. So anyone who is on legacy kind of hardware may feel that they have IT, but actually that IT will not be fully useful or fully productive for their employees in the new scenario. The fact that you're spending 8, 10, 12 hours in front of a screen now, or just on the work front, forget the personal consumption of entertainment, etc., means the screen has to be of absolutely good quality. There can't be too much of strain on your eye. And some of this technology has only evolved over the last 3 4 years, which is better sound quality, better screen quality, much better hardware processing capability, and which is the traction that we are seeing, that people have realized that, okay, they said to an employee, you go work from anywhere, but then there are huge complaints, whether it's call dropping, activity is not great. So hardware refresh is becoming a must, the way I would see it. And then it's not just one thing, right? It is what else goes along with the things that people used to take for granted in an office. What else do you need to be truly productive? So the need for accessories is increasing. You need a speaker, you need a second screen to reduce the strain on your eyes. You do need to invest in the network that is there in your place. So hardware, I would say, is absolutely I would say a very basic requirement. Now, beyond that, what else do you need to ensure that this hybrid workplace model or your business being truly digital has to truly succeed? you do need a lot of other stuff. And to the point I was making, suddenly 500 of your employees have to work from home. It's not just about the laptop, right? Your data has to be secure. The entire experience
Yeah.
has to be seamless. So remote management of your PCs has come up as a big need. The fact that data has to be secure has come up as a big need. And especially for MSMEs, I would say people who are thinking maybe 2, 3, 4 years ahead on the IT infrastructure front, people who are succeeding, and we've seen that people who are a little savvier on the digital front are growing 2x, 3x faster than the traditional kind of models. They scale very quickly from needing just 2 laptops to needing maybe a large data center to come their way, or adopting cloud in a big way. With the scaling, and you have deep experience on the startup front, your basic requirement can suddenly balloon as your business scales.
Yeah.
So even the need for hardware, and I would say we are pretty well equipped on that front, because as a company, we are a uniquely positioned company where we have everything from a smartphone with a Motorola brand to the infrastructure solutions group, the data center business that we built over the last few years. So end to end, any device that you need, whether you need a front end device with a smartphone or a tablet or something which is the core, which is a PC, or you need storage servers going down to supercompute. We are very uniquely positioned. On the term that you used, hardware, the sheer definition of the hardware is also now so wide on the number of devices
Yeah.
which are required to run our business. And on top of that, then everything else in terms of managing it, the security aspect of it does come through.
Shailendra, adding to that, what you said, the hardware and software cataloging, monitoring, and maintenance takes a lot of bandwidth of the IT team. So, how do you think that MSMEs should be thinking about this and leveraging digitization and technology to, not focus on these peripherals, but focus on their core business? What should they be doing?
This is one of the areas where I think it's finally time for IT to have the rightful mind share, I would say, not just at a CIO level, but at a board level or at a company owner level, right? Because typically IT becomes salient only when the laptop crashes. That is where you go scampering after your service guy. Hey, that is what
Yeah.
IT definition practically is, still in a lot of traditional organizations. But digitization is so core to running any business now, and that is what good companies, and that would be my 2 cents to the question that you asked. That is what all good companies should be doing, whether they're small or big. Have an eye out to the next 2 to 3 years, and it has to start from business strategy. It can't start with the fact that I want to do digital for the sake of it. What is the business problem that you're solving today? What is the customer need that you're addressing? How is that likely to change in the next 3 to 4 years? How digital is that process likely to become? And if you're not preparing for that, then are you going to get left behind, or are you going to get disrupted by a startup? So I think companies have to think like that, which is 2 to 3 years out on their own business. How is that likely to evolve on the digital front? And yeah, then the CIO kind of steps in. Okay, this is how my business is going to transform. For that, what is the external process and internal process that I need to do to ensure that my company also becomes digital in that sense? And what I've seen of most companies, the external process is the easier, right? That you do digital marketing, you can open up a digital channel. That's the external facing part. But making the company truly digital inside
Yeah.
is where a lot of, I think, companies are stumbling. And yeah, we have built that capability, I would say, that we can partner with a company right from the design process, which becomes a little more consultative, a little more advisory, rather than us coming at the fag end. Okay, my business strategy is decided, my digital transformation strategy is decided. Now you give me the price for your hardware. We are increasingly finding that less efficient, not just for us, but for companies as well. And if you look at most companies, they would have their IT budget spread across 5, 6, 7, 8 brands, right? I buy this from this from this person, and then I spend a lot of time trying to integrate and make it more seamless and efficient. But especially with smaller companies, they'll not have that legacy. So as they're building to scale, I think that's where we would like to come in. We'll come in early at the design phase. And earlier we maybe did not have the capability to do the end-to-end solutioning part. But right now we can pretty much do everything. In fact, we can do things like, and we know that when you want to do digital transformation, it is expensive. A lot of your legacy has to go, a lot of new has to come in, a lot of capital expenditure comes into play. And that is where we are very innovative now in terms of our device as a service kind of models also. We'll help you design, we'll help you implement, we'll help you execute. And hey, guess what? You don't need to pay everything upfront. You can pay as you go, and you can flex up, flex down as the company scales.
While you do this, cost efficiency, cost optimization becomes extremely critical and important. What are some of the innovative technologies, solutioning that MSMEs can use today?
The first one which I said is we can make it less capital intensive, and not just us, right? In terms of global prediction, people are saying that this as a service kind of model will quickly become the norm. 20-30% is the near term kind of projection.
Yeah.
Instead of people buying in a certain way, start buying differently.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of this appetite is also coming because of what is happening around us, right? People are becoming very comfortable with asset light kind of models, that I don't need to invest everything myself, but I can pay as I go. Cloud is a great example, right?
Yeah.
What does a cloud mean? I'm not investing in data centers myself. I'm leveraging on the capability which is already built by someone else.
Yeah.
So I think that will only accelerate, and we do have good offerings there, like I said, in terms of device as a service. But much more than that, the other point which I was making, you will save on costs if you are efficient in your planning. If you optimize in a silo, over time it becomes inefficient. That you may feel, oh, I've got a great deal from this guy because I beat him down, and I beat another guy down, I beat another guy down. That is like optimizing in a silo. But when then there's a cost of integrating everything together, that's where you realize that, hey, maybe I was not so smart.
Yeah.
And which is where the conversation I'm saying, when you talk about cost, the cost is not I would say there are functions, right? There's a procurement head, and then there's a CIO, CTO. There's now something called a chief digital officer, and then there's a boardroom. This cost decision also is now a boardroom cost decision. It is not, you leave it to the procurement guy, he'll do what his job is, right? I have to be cost down at a silo level.
Yeah.
But end to end, are you becoming efficient in your IT spend?
Yeah.
That's the way we like to encourage people to think.
How are you looking at the security space, right? Now, with so much of data being generated, how should MSMEs look at security, both for hardware and software?
That's again a great question, and I don't think the whole world has a very clear answer to that, right? There's so many devices connected, and there's one hardware aspect, and there's a software aspect. Data breaches can happen anywhere, right?
And we saw that in the last 1 year. So many,
And some is with malicious intent also, right? There are people at work trying to prove how inefficient your firewall is. So I think it is an evolving space, and what we can only encourage companies to do is to be completely at it. It's not a one-time thing, because new challenges will keep coming up. You need to keep with the times in terms of, and the more your organization grows, the number of exposure points are higher. The more applications you download, the exposure points are higher. The more you open up digital channels, you are creating more and more exposure points. So we have some solutions, and the way we work it, we are kind of agnostic on what security solution we want to offer. So we've got our own IP. We have products like ThinkShield. We've got some other security offerings also. But it's also about working with partnerships. So we partner with SentinelOne. I'm just taking one name, but there are many more that we work with. And as a company, we've always been like that, right? Wherever we don't have expertise, we are quite okay. We can act as the integrator. We can recommend what is the best. But in parallel, like I said, we also are building a lot of IP around that part, and it's a constant journey. Cybersecurity, I think, will be one of the biggest topics in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Shailendra, what should be the ideal roadmap or milestones which MSMEs should track or think about when they're starting their digital journey?
I think I don't think there can be a standard milestone for because MSMEs are a very, very wide term, right? Whether you're in services, whether you're in trading, whether you're in manufacturing, every small that you have is a MSME by definition. I would say that you do that business visioning first. In the next 3 to 5 years, how is the area that you are operating in likely to change? And then define, okay, I expect maybe 50% of my, for example, revenue to come from digital channels. It may be 10% today. Am I preparing for that in terms of the way I run marketing, the way I train my workforce? Is my IT infrastructure geared up to sell digitally? If this hybrid workforce or a gig economy is a reality where you will not have people sitting 9 to 5 in your office, am I preparing for that reality to come through? And a gold milestone is, are you making progress? If say 10 to 50% of revenue is the next 3 to 5 year journey, every year are you moving 5-10%? Because suddenly 10 will not become 50. It is a journey.
Yeah.
So each business will define that milestone, and yeah, it is. You have to keep a checkpoint. Are you investing enough? Are you training your internal teams enough to meet that requirement?
Thank you so much. Thank you for this conversation. This is very, I'm sure this will be very, very helpful for MSMEs, and especially those embarking or now taking the digital, because nobody can now ignore it if they have to, and everyone has to take it seriously. This was very useful. Thank you, Shailendra.